week on Thursday to try to get it done. So we'll see what happens. But the program committee needs to hit the ground running with planning for the next meeting as soon as possible. So the sooner this is done, the better. Program for this time. We had 24 submissions. Those are the ones that actually went all the way through the system and made it in and showed up as in our system as being ready for us to review. Of those, we accepted 13. It's not mentioned here, but the ones that we didn't accept fell into two broad categories, one being it was a marketing talk, and the other one being that it was submitted too late after we had already filled the agenda. Which leads me into the next thing there, or the one after. We have fewer Boston tutorials submitted this time than we usually do, which is kind of surprising, but we needed the time anyway for more plenary, so it worked out. But we're kind of surprised by the lack of, especially BOF submissions this time. So I don't know what caused it. Maybe it's just a fluke. Maybe it's a trend. I don't know. We completed the agenda early this time. It was actually published more than a month before the meeting, which is the first time that I can recall that we've ever done that, certainly since I've been in charge. I suspect Red had something to do with the fact that we did it on time. The argument for doing that was that it made it a lot easier for you folks to get travel approval if you could show your bosses what the agenda was, and it would be something worth sending somebody to. The disadvantage for us perhaps was that there was less flexibility in the program over the last few weeks. Perhaps there might have been some interesting things that came up that we could have stuck in. It wasn't as big a problem as I feared it might be, but it still did come up. And it struck me that the solution to that could be to hold back a bit of time for last minute stuff and use it for lightning talks if nothing else. So not a big deal, just something to think about. Yeah.
So it looks like almost a 2-to-1 ratio of accepted to, or submissions to accepted. Could you give us a little bit more idea of how many of those were submitted and rejected because they just were too late? And also, this is better than we've had before, right?
In terms of raw numbers, it's actually a bit lower, although I will say there were a couple things that weren't submitted because the person asked after it was too late and we said don't bother. But this time we have a few more panels which eat up a lot more time, so it really worked out okay. I'd say that on average we had a lower number of submissions but higher average quality, so it worked out. I'm not sure I'm ready to declare a trend though. Yeah. Yeah, that does make a difference. We only have a limited amount of time for the plenary because of the joint meeting, so we have it a bit less than usual. Although, to be honest, there are some other things that we've done which decrease the total plenary time. One of them is adding lightning talks. Another one is adding a keynote. These are all things that have generally gotten positive responses, so and this is something we can talk about later. But these are things that we intend to continue as long as you folks, the community, thinks it's valuable. If you don't think it's valuable, then please tell us and we'll do different things. Okay, NANOG Aaron IPv6 workshop took up all of today. That was a joint effort between the folks at Aaron and us at NANOG and the people who led the sessions this morning and afternoon. So thank you all for your work. Just judging by the number of people sitting in that room all day, it worked out really well. We do have an invited keynote this time. It will be Tuesday morning. Steve Ryan, the Aaron Council, is going to be talking to us. He has some really interesting things to say about, well, just come and you'll find out. He's a lawyer, but I promise it'll be worth listening to. Program format, just skim through this. Condensed format, Sunday through Tuesday, so stuff today, tomorrow, plenary. In the morning, the early afternoon session, since we didn't have many BOF submissions, it's going to be more plenary. And Tuesday's plenary all day. We end at 5 p.m. And then you get to stay for Aaron or go to your peering thing or go home. Feedback. So we want to hear from you. We're here to serve the needs of the community, not to just have fun ourselves and go on expensive junkets. PC members have yellow badges and green badges. Mine's green, the others are yellow. Let's see, send mail to us or send mail to the NANOG Futures list if you want to talk about the program. There's actually been some interesting discussion on that in the last few days on NANOG futures, and I think that's great. I want to encourage that. Even better, volunteer. We'd love to have more people, more fresh blood on the program committee. There are 3 open slots for sure. So if you're interested, nominate yourself or get somebody to nominate you, whatever. Now I'll open the mics in case anybody wants to ask me questions. Here are some suggested topics, but if there's anything else. Bill, any more questions? All right. I don't see anybody. So. Well, thank you. Okay, end of show. Click to exit. Click. Okay.
I'm the management guy out of the group. Okay. Okay. Hey, everybody, I'm Martin. I'm newly minted with the mailing list committee, and I'm going to do the report as quickly as possible. So, history and errata. Committee's comprised of volunteers. We've jointly operated the list since pre-Vegas, pre the actual charter. The community basically got together and said they wanted to kind of run things, and that's where it all started. It's AUP based. We have an AUP that's been in existence since the beginning of the list, I would assume. 5 members, 4 from the list, 1 from merit. Authority and construction of the committee, 7.1.2, the mailing list administration section in the charter clearly states that this is our job. 2-year appointments by the SC. Basically, it's fire and forget. Fire and forget means that they appoint and can remove people from the committee, but the process in general, submitting policy for approval through the SC and merit is up to us. We appoint our own chair, and we suggest policy and consensus with merit and the community through this forum and the mailing list. Well, NANOG futures. So, general statistics, no bans. We have one permit. We had no bans this period. We have 1 ban that's been banned since probably 05 or early 06. We all know who it is, and I'm not going to propose that we bring him back again like I did last time. We don't know the warnings number yet, but we'll post that to the futures list. I think it's fairly low. List numbers, subscribers, 8,400, posters, 7,700, the digest, 1,300, and futures. There's a 2.7 overall participation rate, and that's an aggregate of subscribers and digest. Not bad, actually. A spam campaign gets about 2%, so not bad. So, moving forward, we've had some discussion on the list, and the bad news is I'm back. And the good news is we did a lot of work, and this is one of the products of the work that we did. A lot of this was done with the previous group, and the last week we pulled it all together and put these bullet points together. And this is our proposal basically for the new AUP, and we've condensed it down to some very focused bullet points. Discussions will focus on internet operational and technical issues as described in the Charter of NANOG. You'll notice that we removed what was the word? Discouraged, and we eliminated the wishy-washy language and said that it's prohibited, period. Postings of issues inconsistent with the charter, cross-posting, postings that include foul language, the usual, product marketing, not just blatant product marketing, but product marketing, political, philosophical, legal. Unless you're a lawyer, I think we would make an exception for lawyers, but then again, I don't think a lawyer would post legal advice on NANOG. And using the list as a source for private marketing initiatives. This is the one where probably many of us get mail occasionally, unsolicited, from people that want to sell us routers and things, and they have an eBay business or something, and they're subscribed to the list, and It doesn't really look like spam, but it kind of is, so we added that in there. And generally, we came up with a little bit of methodology of how we want to run the list, and that is the list should reflect the activities of the conference. And if you can't point to the list as a justification to attend the conference, we're basically losing. So it's kind of a circle, I think. You know, if there are topics that are pervasive on the list, perhaps the PC could look at them and suggest topics for the conference. And if the mailing list isn't generating that kind of activity, then the SC can appoint different people and so on and so forth, and seems to be a little bit cohesive. So, AUP adherence and support. Basically, this is another not fully consensus proposal, but should be. There's some process that needs to go on behind the scenes, but we've got some of that done. But basically, again, this is what we're presenting to you. We want to hear your feedback on. MLC comments that address a poster's behavior, not on the list. MLC comments that address the relevancy of a thread will be on the list, but will also be consensus-based amongst the administrators. The MLC will seek internal consensus on warnings. So when someone gets a warning, it'll mean that the entire MLC stands behind that. The AUP nonconformance is equally weighted, so there's no minor crimes or major crimes. You violate the AUP, it's just like on your network. Either you do or you don't. Roll call votes for subscriber bans and or reinstatements, so there's a way that people can be put off and put back on, as well as the appeals process to the SC. Nope. Transparency. Automated filters will be posted clearly and accurately on the website. We do, wait till the end of the talk, please. We do, wait till the end of the talk, please. We do have some filters, and we did post them early on, and we're going to do that again. And anytime there's any changes to that, we'll make sure that they're also posted on the website so that you can clearly see them and know what is being filtered. If I remember correctly, the last time we posted the filters, it was basically to stop some DDoSes from spammers and things like that. And I think there's some other things that have been put into place that'll help with that, but you will know what is being filtered. The automated monthly statistics, there was some migration to some tools, and those broke a little bit, and they're being fixed as we speak. And then we're going to hold monthly meetings and post the minutes on the website so that you can all see exactly what's going on inside of the committee. So this is your mailing list, and this is our community, and you know we want to work together. And that's pretty much it. And credits to the MLC, Merritt, and Aaron for shipping me here. Thank you. And Alex is going to take the questions.
Yeah. You still want to? Yeah.
Could you go back a couple slides?
Sure. How many more?
No, next.
This
Yeah,
one?
right there.
Yes.
So one of those jumped out at me. I guess the question I wanted to ask is it your feeling that we're getting better at informing a poster that what they've done violates this specific AUP process, and that this is an informal one MLC member comment as opposed to a MLC warning?
Yes, we always specify whether it's an official MLC warning or this is a friendly note, please change your behavior or else. So in email, it's always specific whether it's a warning or not. No, we always do that. Well, okay, there is no consensus on that one, but we try to.
I think Randy's point.
Yes, I understand what Randy is pointing at.
Okay.
Let's next. Anybody else?
Lucy Lynch, as a long time, no, that same slide. As a long time list master, there are two things in here that give me the heebie-jeebies.
Okay.
Prohibited for lack of respect and prohibited for philosophical. Does that mean I can't mention Spinoza on the list? Both of those are really spongy. What do those mean?
I think it's pretty self-obvious. We don't want long-winded discussions about which really don't have anything to do with technology or operation or engineering. If it's not specific network operation discussion, that does not belong on the list. And if you want to mention Spinoza and you somehow it is operational, then be my guest.
Okay. I think philosophical will come back to bite you, but we'll see.
Could you go forward one foil, please? One foil.
Yes.
I would note that it says that the MLC will write to everybody, and it doesn't say it will tell them the status of that message.
This is the broad policy that we agreed on. There may be a more specific one that we will, internally use, but we, will definitely will be more clear. Yes.
So, Randy,
Microphone.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to abandon
Okay,
Alex up
okay.
there. Why don't we just add a word that says, "will note to poster" then? Okay, let's do that. Let's do, pick it. Let's, what was that, Todd? Try the microphone.
What do you guys talk? I can understand Randy's question and therefore the answer.
So basically, we're not going to rehash the issue that happened on futures, but he wants us to be clear on, is it a warning or not a warning, right, Randy? Okay, enough. So
I have no trouble.
tell us what you want. Tell us what you want.
For saying, "Dear Charlie, I think this is out of line, but I'm speaking as an individual member."
Well, no, we'll, okay, I understand. So we'll define if you're getting a warning or not a warning, but it's always going to be in our role as an MLC member. So it's going to say NANOG MLC member, but if it has the full backing of the committee, it'll say representing the MLC. How's that? And we'll send an update of these slides to the list by tomorrow before your meeting, and hopefully it'll answer that question or, address that concern. If that works for you, I think that's easy for us to do, and it works for us.
Yes.
Okay. One thing that's not clear from the slides that may be worth spelling out is that there are two sections here. There's the internal policy of how the mailing list is run, process
Yes.
of how the mailing list goes about.
Yes. This
Warning
is
people,
this is
banning
the
people.
internal policy right here on the screen.
Right. So that internal policy, as far as I understand it, is entirely up to the mailing list committee to
Yes.
work out itself. And I think it's great that you are being able to publish that, and it's very good for transparency for members of the list who have been...
Absolutely.
Yeah, right. The first part, the acceptable use policy, is slightly different in that I think the work you've done in trying to sort of put the changes together like that is fantastic, and you've saved the SE a huge amount of work, which is awesome.
Thank Marty.
Yep. Yep. And the only point I wanted to make about that is that this is slightly different to the other stuff in that the formal ratification of this is done by the steering committee.
Absolutely.
And not
Yeah.
by the mailing list committee.
Yes. That's I'm sorry this is not clear, but this will come up for tomorrow's meeting with
Yep.
SC, who will approve or disapprove this.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
So, I think it's fantastic the mailing list is taking the initiative to put this out
Oh.
so that it can be considered.
I don't take the full credit. Any other questions?
I know I said this for the PC, but the MLC, first of all, I want to say really thank you, because these people, I don't know if everybody in the room realizes this, they're all volunteers, they don't get paid, and they have to read every single message that is posted to NANOG. So, for this volunteerism, they get hot pokers shoved through their eyes, and then they do work on top of it. So everyone needs to thank them and buy them a beer.
Woo! Thank you. Okay. Anybody else? Okay. Thank you.
I'm Betty from Merit, and
Microphone.
I'm so used to yelling across the room. Sorry. I'm Betty from Merit, and this portion of the meeting is dedicated to some Merit updates. I am going to actually give my slides last, And I'm going to invite a couple technical team members from Merit to come up and give you a report on the video project. Jason Russell. And that will be followed then by Larry Blunk.
Just run it. Okay, only 3 slides here on the update of the webcast. Talk about some things that we've done, or at least been doing since the last NANOG meeting. And this slide is things that we've actually implemented for this meeting, or things that we've actually accomplished so far. Instead of having individual cameras that are pointing at the podium and the head table and each audience camera, we moved to pan-tilt zoom cameras that can be controlled from the back of the room. So in the event that, for instance, Randy gives a talk, we can actually follow him around the stage without having camera operators all over the room. And that's done with a PTZ camera controller. So we've got joystick control, pan, tilt, zoom, brightness, all sorts of controls for each of the cameras. We've also been trying to get some update to our encoder hardware. Thus far, we've been either using a laptop with real media running on it, or at least for the past year and a half or so, using a VBrick appliance that we get on loan from Internet 2. We are trying to upgrade at least the processing power of the encoder to hopefully someday offer HD or just better looking video and slide capture as well. In doing that, we've also been evaluating new encoder software and settled on a package called Wirecast. In working with Matt Peterson from the community, he suggested this. It offers a lot more user-friendly views of the content. It can have sort of picture-in-picture slides with video, so it's not all just switching back and forth between slides or cameras. You can have multiple cameras in one view, so you can do Q&A with the presenter and the audience within one window. So it offers a lot more functionality. We purchased the encoder hardware. We've got actually a very large Dell desktop unit that's too big for our liking, but is supposedly the most powerful thing that we could find, and have loaded it with the Wirecast software, although right now we are still experimenting with it at this meeting and are getting used to it. It's not the be-all, end-all solution for us right now, but it is a step forward, at least for demoing it at this meeting. Other things that included in that demo, I mentioned Wirecast. We also are working with Matt Peterson. We got a loan of a HDV camera from Internet 2. They shipped one after their member meeting, that we are having direct FireWire over fiber as input into the encoder hardware. Right now, we capture everything with S-video cables, or either S-video Balins over Cat5. And the S-video just leaves a lot to be desired. So we're looking at a way to at least get some sort of high-speed FireWire directly into the encoder box. We are tunneling the unicast feed back to Ann Arbor. We've had different experiences depending on where we are and which provider we're using to get out of the host site. So we're tunneling it back to Ann Arbor to try and get around any routing inconsistencies that we may see. With Wirecast, it sends out Windows Media and QuickTime feeds that we can send back to servers that we have back in Ann Arbor. And at this meeting, we're also working to try and get native multicast out of here instead of the tunnel back to Ann Arbor and then multicast from there. Yes?
I just had a question about the encoders you're using. Were they designed for IP from the ground up, do you know? Or are they someone you worked with to do that?
No, what we did was we, for portability and functionality, we started with wanting to have maintain our laptop solution so that it's easy to take from room to room. And it didn't have the direct video inputs that we wanted. So then we went to a small Dell desktop unit. And in going through that and needing video input ports and a better video card and all the things that we were trying to put into it, it just blossomed into the biggest box that Dell makes, basically. Sue in the back helped us spec it out, but we didn't actually spec it out based on any sort of specs like that. It was just to try and get the most processing power to handle the video content as good as we could.
Did you guys do any work to optimize the stack for buffers? Because IP and video can be a little funky sometimes. If it's transmission or if it's production quality video, especially. Did you guys do anything like that?
No.
Nothing at the far end for buffering capability to deal with lossy networks and stuff like that?
Not that I know of, no.
All right. Just curious.
But would be good to have you and Sue talk, or anybody that is well versed in that to
It's a difficult arena right now.
yeah.
Do you have something to add, sir?
Yeah, Joel Yegley. Just to respond in part to Ted's question, since I was responsible, I guess, for the first video encoding from NANOG. You know, every time you go down the road of getting the best thing that you possibly can, it ends up being larger than you like. And mine ended up being 5 feet tall and weighing 260 kilograms and having 4 rack mount PCs in it. So I'm definitely sympathetic to your plight. And yeah, the optimization of encoders is always a work in progress.
Yeah, and right now we're trying to work with the settings on Wirecast and what is available on the machine to try and give it the best performance. But from what we're seeing so far, it may be that just a Mac Mini with FireWire inputs is just as good, and it's the size of a slice of pizza. So.
Cisco for free, new SA optimized IP buffering multicast encoders.
At the last community meeting, Marty had asked about the archives, so I wanted to give some stats about what the hits in the data transferred on the archives from at least May through September. The number of hits don't always directly correlate to gigabytes transferred, mainly because of if there's a lot of hits for Philip Smith's tutorial that's an hour and a half long, it's a little different than a lightning talk. So just wanted to provide this. Also, I believe Larry is going to talk as well about what's going on with the archives. Right now, there's about 50 gig of video archives that we have. Each meeting is about 2.3 to 2.6 gig of data or disk space. So give you folks a sense of what we have from each meeting. And any other questions? Right? Thanks.
Okay, my name is Larry Blunk, and I'm going to give an update on the NANOG servers that are used for the web server and mailing list and the real media server. So as background, Merit currently hosts the NANOG web and mail and real media servers on shared servers, which are used also for our other websites and mailing lists and real media streams and archives. These have performed relatively well with the exception of the mail server, which some of you have noticed from time to time when there's been threads that have had a lot of activity. The mail server can get bogged down, and the mail delivery can be delayed quite significantly. So we've actually, internally, we've been going through a technology refresh. We had been a Sun shop, but we've been transitioning over to Intel-based servers. We've already updated our web server. The mail server and the Real Media server are still running on Sun machines. But the idea here was to try to, since the mail server in particular tends to get a lot of volume, to go with a separate solution for that. So back at the Toronto NANOG, we had a meeting about working with some of the community members, Randy Bush in particular, was gracious enough to donate 2 Intel-based servers. We also worked with Joe Provo and Steve Feldman setting up these servers. So it's sort of been a community effort to get these machines set up, and they've helped configure them with FreeBSD and install mailing list software. And so the idea here is to have the ability to have more control, to have faster machines, and the ability to deploy new services by working with the community to help to set up these new services. So we're going to have one server that's used primarily for a mailing list, hosting the mailing list. And in addition to the NANOG main mailing list, we have a number of other lists for the PC and for engineering and NANOG support. So we're going to be moving those to one machine, and then a second machine for hosting the web server and the video archives, and also for support of the PC and SC. And then the idea here will be to have each server back each other up. So if one server happens to be down, the other one could potentially pick up the functions of the other server. So briefly, the mail server will run Mailman and Exim for the list management. We've been running Majordomo for a long time, and it's getting pretty stale. Code hasn't been updated in a number of years, and Mailman brings an enhanced user interface and a lot more features. So we've moved over the NANOG Inch list already and are sort of experimenting with that, and we'll be moving over the other lists shortly. We're still looking at, for archiving email, right now it's still going to go to the existing archive on the main mail server. We're looking at several different options for archival. There's been some concern about the Mailman archival function and its interface. It's a little bit clunky. So the web server we're actually also redesigning the NANOG website. We have an in-house web designer who's been doing an excellent job with our websites, and so he's redesigning that, and the plan is to move over to the new server when he's done with that. Steve Feldman has also done a lot of work with the website that's used by the program committee, and he's hosted that on his own machine, but with Steve moving on, we decided it would probably be good to move that site over to the NANOG server. Another issue is the Real Video server. We've been thinking about whether we really want to maintain that, if that's the best solution for delivering the archived video streams. It's currently running on a Sun machine that's a bit out of date, and we've been thinking about whether we want to refresh that with a new server with the Real server software, or just use HTTP to deliver the archive streams from the web server. So at this point, we're planning on just moving that over to the web server and hosting that via HTTP. That does present some issues with seeking. Some of the older streams seem to have issues with being able to seek when you use HTTP to deliver the stream, whereas when you're using the Real server, you can go forward and backwards without any problem. The newer streams seem to be fine, but the older ones seem to have some issues. There's also been some concern about the proprietary nature of the Real video streams and whether people want to move those streams to a standard format like MPEG-4 or H.264. I did some experimentation with mencoder, and it supposedly can translate re-encode the Real streams into MPEG-4, but the only player that could play them was VLC and MPlayer, so there seem to be some issues there. I'm still looking at that. And then there's been some thought about now that we have these dedicated servers hosting other services such as the community wiki that's currently on Clupon, or having some kind of forum that's Slash-based forum. So that's it. Any questions? Thank you.
Here we go again. We're all still awake, right? I'll be quick. I promised I would be quick so we would have plenty of time for community discussion. Again, I think you all know who I am. I'm Betty Burke. I am just a member of a large team at Merit. I'm their spokesperson and pretty much the interface to the steering committee. There are a number of people back home at Merit, including our host, IP Connect, that have brought this meeting to you. So as we travel through the halls, make sure that you thank our host. It's an important part of making the NANOG meetings happen. I want to also provide a special thanks to our contributors. The registration, contributors, and sponsorships are all what make this financially viable. Our break sponsors, XKL and RADB. Our beer and gear sponsors, which help pay for all the beer and the food at our reception. And I just wanted to briefly allow you to know who the folks from Merit are. I think they're wearing purple badges. I think you have purple. I think Merit staff have purple badges. The Merit staff that are here providing the support, Carol Wadsworth. I think you all know who Carol is in terms of meeting registration and hotel logistics. Gail Turkers is providing support for the PC and registration. David Gilbertson, our network engineer. Jason, who presented, is our lead video production. Larry Blunk, our sysadmin and network support. And Sue Joyner from the mail list team is also a sysadmin from Merit. Valerie Whitcomb is also supporting the PC. And I think I do something here, not quite sure yet. I wanted to, you've heard it a number of times, but I can't stress the importance enough to the community of the elections and of the survey. The elections are your opportunity to select members of the community to speak on your behalf. The importance of the survey at the end of the meeting is your opportunity to provide input on what you want out of the meeting here, the meetings going forward, and if we don't hear from you, we're just taking, a shot in the dark. Wanted to provide just some brief statistics. If you were at the NANOG 40 meeting, you would have seen this information at the close of the meeting, but I thought it important to just bring back to all of us here at the next meeting what happened in Bellevue, which leads into the budget report, which is the financial part of my report to the community. The beginning balance, as you see it, is $232,571. We use that money in the bank to primarily help us with the ebb and flow of the account. Some meetings we do financially better, some meetings we don't. And we also need to be able to have a reserve to plan the future meetings. And that's why it's important for us to show you that number and be aware of what it is. The expenses for the Bellevue meeting were $261,273.32. Or excuse me, the revenue. Sorry, wrong number. The revenue comes in three forms: the beer and gear and break sponsorships, and your registration fees, as well as a contribution from Aaron. So that's the form of the revenue dollar. The expenses, we tried to give you highlighted categories. The salary dollars are the It's what we have to pay the merit staff for supporting the meeting. The non-salary dollars, excuse me, is the equipment that we purchased for just that meeting. In big part, it was a big purchase for the video equipment, and we had some additional cabling. The supplies, the lanyards, the badges, the paper products, all of the things that it takes to put the meeting together. The merit staff travel, what it costs to send the people on the previous slide to get to Bellevue. The hosting, this is a big number. If you watch any of the previous slides, we spent a bit more in Bellevue on our hosting contract. We had to pay more for our AV support, and we had to pay for room rental to be in Bellevue. So it was a larger expense. And our overhead dollars, that's the portion of what the community, NANOG, has to pay for just being hosted at Merit, the general part of what all projects at Merit are exposed to, the cost of rent, the cost of insurance, and those kinds of things. What that netted for the Bellevue meeting is a loss. The previous slides show that for Toronto and where were we at after that? Sorry. No, sorry, San Jose. You can see that we made progress on Toronto. We lost it on Bellevue, which was the same, wasn't such a good situation in San Jose, but the budget report for St. Louis was better. So that's the ebb and the flow of how the budget goes. I have committed to working with the SC to help them better understand what some of the actual numbers behind some of these roll-ups are so that we can do some research on trending. There's been a dialogue in the SC, I think it was a spinoff of NANOG Futures as well, to try to better understand whether it made any difference in terms of registration numbers, whether we were in big cities or small cities, or whether it was a direct flight or not that affected the registration numbers. So those are the kinds of trends that we're looking at to make sure that we can improve on the bottom line. My observation to all of you is the issue isn't necessarily whether we have 3 meetings or 2 meetings a year. The issue really is how can we improve the attendance at the meetings, and whether there's any better sponsorship formula than the one we've been using for a very long time. Beer and gear and break sponsors are a big piece of the revenue stream. And do we have it right? Do we have the registration model right based on content and program agenda and location? And do we have the sponsorship number right? My boss and my support staff back in Ann Arbor don't like to see these red numbers any more than you do. No one wants to pay more for registration, but it's really important that the SC work with Merit and that we try to better understand these trends so that we go in the right direction that we all want to go to. But in the sake and in commitment for transparency, you all need to see what they are. What's next? It's always important to look forward. I'm looking forward to next week working with a new group of SC members. We also need to, as Joe indicated and Steve reiterated, get a new PC set because it's really important by the end of October to get, or first week of November, to get a call for presentation going for our next meeting. So we're really going to be moving fast so that we can give all of you, before you go into the holiday break, a sense of what the agenda for the February meeting is going to look like. Future meeting sites, I made a commitment to everyone when we talked about raising the registration rates to work very hard to get some pre-dates set for future meetings. I'm happy to report that we've made some progress. I can't commit to all of them, but I think it's a huge step in the right direction that I can confirm right now that NANOG 42 is going to be in San Jose on February 17th through the 20th. Our host is going to be CRG West. We have a contract in hand. We're in our second iteration of that contract for NANOG 43. The date is June 1st through the 4th. Until I get a contract in place, I don't want to name the host and or the location, but I think you all may have some information that we're looking at Brooklyn, New York, which would be very exciting if we could make this happen. Pardon? No sleep. NANOG has never been to New York, so it was very exciting when this sort of dropped in that we could go to a location we haven't been to. I think it'd be great to get back to the East Coast, but as always, for those who have hosted NANOG before, getting a hotel contract worked out isn't always as easy as it sounds. It takes a little bit of time. We're also working on a contract for NANOG 44, which is our joint meeting with Aaron. We hope that we could have a hotel contract and an announcement for that site within the next month as well. We're pretty close. We did run into some roadblocks before this meeting, and we simply ran out of time to work on those issues. The date that I think we're pretty much locked into, regardless of venue, is October 12th through the 14th, just because of other meetings that we're going to collide with. And so whether we go to the location that we're working on or another one, I think that was pretty much the date that we all agreed, both at NANOG and Aaron, that we're going to be working with. As I mentioned to the current SC, a month out, we're going to have these pretty well locked in, and we'll actually begin to start talking about February. The good news is that through this meeting here already and through my email last week, we may actually have a host for February of 09, June of 09, and with some discussions about October of 09. So really positive things, giving security to dates. And I think that's it for me. I'm certainly here, can take questions now. I got questions now.
My question is, a couple of meetings ago we talked about locking in the same venue for multi-years. Whatever happened with that?
I tried really hard. We had talked about getting Chicago. It was something I think I talked about in the PC and the SC. Problem when I started looking at Chicago was the cost of hotel rooms. We heard loud and clear, the SC did as well as Merit, that there was a sensitivity to room rates, how much all of you could feel you could get approval at your companies for, and trying to lock in Chicago in June with the kind of space that we needed with the room rate that we were going to pay was darn near impossible.
Are we still looking at other locations like that, but still multi-year deals?
Absolutely. My goal, truthfully, right now was to get some locked in so that we could change the trend and then work on changing the trend or getting multiple year or locations. The problem with the same location or multiple years is we also need a host in that location to commit to being a host for multiple years. So it's one thing to get a location and get a good hotel rate, but then I have to have a host that's willing to provide transit and doing all the other things that hosts do for us for those multiple years. So it's a little bit more work.
Toronto in February seemed to be very popular.
It was,
really
wasn't
was.
it?
Well, and so that's actually part of my question is, what's interesting about the numbers that you present is that the locations that are considered by some of poor taste to be undesirable, whether for their weather reasons or for the fact that they're St. Louis, those are the meetings that produce net positive revenue. Whereas the locations that people think are great that are going to turn out, 700 people all paying full rate seem to lose money. Is that just a recent trend, or is that longer term?
No, the Bellevue, we took a gamble. Don Walsh, the CEO at Merit, is here, and when we looked at the Bellevue contract and we looked at the expense, I said to Don, yeah, let's take a risk on it because it's in a popular location. We think we'll get a lot of walk-ins, and we should have a high registration number to make up the gap. We didn't.
Okay.
So it's a trend. It's something we have to look at. And if you recall, after St. Louis, we were talking about going to Albuquerque, and there was a lot of, I don't know if it made it into NANOG Futures, but there was certainly a lot of discussion on the NANOG SC about Albuquerque. And last time I checked, we had 437 registrants here.
This may not be a question for you, but related to that, Santo Domingo idea was floated and went away, and the SC decided we weren't going to do that. Is that so? As you're booking all the stuff out really far into the future, I thought that was a fantastic idea, and I think it'd be a shame to not make space for that and figure out a way to make that happen.
Absolutely. One of the things that I mentioned to the SC is since we have October lined up, we have to revisit this issue about February before we go forward and make too much. I think too much commitment to our host or get a lot of people working on that. And we have to look at all the other organizations that we need to have the conversation with that we didn't have in the last round of that discussion.
Betty, I know one of the things we had talked about in the past had been the price of the hotel rooms that everyone in this room would have to bear. And you're looking at some of these places like New York City. I know you wanted to sort of get kind of an idea from the community. Is $200 per night the maximum people would be willing to spend? Or is it now $225? Because last time we asked was like 2 or 3 years ago.
It was $159. So, no, good question, Bill.
This may be a good forum to have that survey in if you want to ask.
Absolutely.
Put it on the survey.
There you go. Put it on. Tell us on the survey what you think. Absolutely. Tell us what you think your maximum hotel rate can be, because it's important. It's important. It's just really important, and we don't know if you don't tell us.
I get attacked by the microphone. Just a brief comment on Toronto. The Toronto numbers were reasonable. They were in the black. And I think one of the big reasons for that is we spent a lot of time in Toronto getting local people to come to the meeting. And we spent probably a month and a half, 2 months beforehand just calling people and trying to convince them they should pay for their staff to go to NANOG. And I think in some of the locations, I think we sometimes take that for granted that the local community will do that on their own. And I think people who are regular NANOG attendees should really take some of the responsibility for that and trying to make the meetings successful by getting people in their towns when their meetings are local to sign up and come.
I agree with you. That made a huge difference in Toronto. And I'm not picking on anyone here, but it's another piece of fact of information. We have 437, excuse me, registered for this meeting, and we had an agenda out a month in advance. When we went to Bellevue, we had an agenda out 2 weeks before the meeting.
If the location is still tentative for the October 2008, could we consider putting it on the East Coast so that it's easier for those who are trying to do both RIPE and NANOG back to back?
Something we can talk about. The issue, Ren, with October is when Rodney Jaffe asked if he could host NANOG in California, given the significance of the year and the amount that Rodney has done for NANOG, we kind of said, yes, absolutely.
Can we ask him if he can do February 09 then, so that we can try to make it easier on those who have to choose one or the other?
We'll try.
Thank you. Los Angeles is just the most difficult to get to Europe from.
I understand.
In the United States.
We'll talk to him.
Thanks. Stop.
Let's do it. Honolulu is actually easier.
Yeah, not a complaint, just an observation. The room rate I'm willing to pay does actually vary a little bit depending on how long I have to be here. And since I have to be here from Saturday through Friday for this particular meeting, that's actually quite a long time, both in terms of getting away or justifying being here and also, in terms of what it ends up costing my company. Thanks.
Absolutely. And as is the community nature of NANOG, one size doesn't fit all of us. We have lots of issues, excuse me, that we have to deal with, and that's the ebb and the flow of some of this.
Why don't you just do a quick straw poll here right now? And
Okay, you do it.
Okay. How many people in this room would not be able to attend a Brooklyn NANOG event, which would be, what, a 2-day? A 3-day event, if the price was $225? How many people could not attend? Okay, so what was that, like 15, 20 people? that?
They start charging for legacy.
Yes, Ted.
Hey, Betty, I know that price is a big deal.
Yes.
Always. But it truly is setting an artificial ceiling going to paint you into a corner that you can't get out of.
It's tough. It will. It will. If we find ourselves in a situation where our ceiling is 179, it's going to be really, really hard to find locations where you all will enjoy going to a NANOG meeting.
Yes, I can handle Cheyenne once, but if you tell me Cheyenne twice, I ain't doing it.
Albuquerque 3 times. This is the 3rd time.
Be nice, guys. Let's go on.
Albuquerque 4th time, though. Why not? No, sorry. Information rather than a question. Next year's fall right meeting is not back-to-back with the NANOG and ARIM meeting. There is a clear week between the two. So that's from the 26th to the 30th. And also it will not be in Amsterdam, it will be in Dubai.
Ah.
The CRAS is being updated.
As far as the room rate, it might be smart to put on the survey, is it the per night rate that matters? Is it the total cost over the length of the meeting? And also, is it airfare plus room rate?
Yeah.
But as far as the straw poll goes, I would highly recommend that you poll the people who couldn't make it rather than the people who did.
Yeah.
In general. I'm just saying, poll the people who couldn't make it. Maybe it's the dates, the airfare, find out why they couldn't.
Just a quick idea, is it possible with the hotel reservations to have an earlier rate? So if you commit 2 months prior to the event, get a cheaper rate at the hotel. I don't know if the hotels are open to that.
Not generally. Just so everyone knows, the way our hotel contracts work, the way we try to make our hotel contracts work, is that we book room nights at certain rates, which are the public rates that you all pay. And because of the large room block, they generally will let us have meeting space for free. That's not the kind of deal that we're always getting now. Hotels want room rental in addition to room blocks, so it's becoming much more aggressive and difficult. And it doesn't matter whether we book a year in advance for those room blocks or a month before. They don't move too much on the rates. Okay. Thanks, everyone. We're not done.
Actually, I have a question.
Sure.
Step back from this. I have a straw poll that I would like to take of the room. However, it is likely to devolve into finger pointing and significantly derail the current conversation. So I want to make sure that the current conversation is over before I do it.
Good. I'm done, so I'll turn it over to Joe.
All right.
After.
I'm waiting for the chair to approve.
Please proceed with the straw poll. So just before you mention what the straw poll is about, are you imagining a show of hands or?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm actually what I'm going to.
Because you have bits of paper in your hand too, so I'm a bit confused.
Yeah, I have paper here. I'm. Does it have a list of names on it? It does not have a list of names.
If you
on
stop
it.
varying the distance from the
Yeah,
mic,
yeah.
then the people at the back can stop moving the sliders. So.
Okay. It doesn't have a list of names on it. I'm not writing down anybody's names. I'm not going to collar people who had their hands up later, although I might send out mail and say, hey, can you get behind this if you said that you were behind this. But it's come to my attention recently because of recent events that the reasons that the SC can remove somebody from the SC as in a self-policing sort of way. It's actually very narrowly scoped. It's for non-participation, that's pretty much it. For things like conduct unbecoming or being deliberately disruptive or whatever, the SC really has no ability to that's codified to deal with that. And I see Betty stepping up there, so I'm hoping. And so section 6.7 actually in the charter actually addresses this. And I was hoping to see a show of hands for people who would be willing to support or think that it might be generally a good idea to delete the language in 6.7 that restricts the reasons that the SC can police its own, with the understanding that you'd need a supermajority to take action against anybody for misbehavior. So,
okay, so
that's the question on the table is who thinks that this might be a good idea?
So without having the text on the screen, it's somewhat difficult to comment on, but the general proposal is that the SC be given the power to eject somebody else, a sitting SC member, for whatever reason they see fit.
But by a supermajority without scoping it as to the reasons that they can do that.
Okay.
So,
and you're asking for a show of hands?
I'm asking for a show of hands at this time, yes.
So, who would be in favor of such a proposal in general, given that it's not written down fully in legal type text?
It's hard to say exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
Bill, can you turn the projector back on for a second? Did anybody just count the number of hands that were raised?
I didn't count the number, but I'll take the time to actually write it up based on the level of support that I've seen, and we'll run it up the flagpole on futures and see what we can get.
Okay.
Yeah. Can we see people opposed?
Okay. I think I saw a few more than 6 hands.
We had better than 2.7% participation.
So in terms of process, as I mentioned before, if there is another proposal to amend the charter at this meeting,
I don't think that it will be ready by this meeting. I think it's something that will
then we
come
can
up
avoid the
for
discussion of how the mechanics of that would work. That's
yeah,
fine.
yeah.
Okay.
I don't want to upset the apple cart. That's
okay,
fine.
so this would be a proposal that people who are interested in it might get together and put that forward for next October's meeting.
Yes.
Which is the next opportunity to change the charter.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Keith.
Just wanted to comment on that. The reason that I didn't stick my hand up to either option is I find it very difficult to do so without a rationale for the change. So I'd request if this is coming back as a proposal, we need some accompanying rationale.
I think RS was being diplomatic in not spelling out any particular recent events that he think might be this policy might be useful for. But yeah, I'm sure if you go and talk to RS in the bar afterwards, he'll give you his full reasoning.
Yeah, Joel Yeagley. I don't think there's any particular reason why the charter should scope potentially revolutionary activities. I don't need a charter. In fact, I would prefer to explicitly throw it down when I get to the point where I wish to engage in that sort of activity. And obviously that has happened before in this organization and in many others. So I'm not philosophically opposed to this policy proposal. I might even consider it. But I wouldn't actually consider it scoping the limits of my
I guess, RS, for me, the greatest concern I have about something like this would be that you're taking the will of a very large group of people and reducing that by the will of a smaller subset of people. And you're going to have to really have something bad happen to make you want to exercise that specific thing. And I wonder if such a specific thing might be so rare and unlikely to happen in the future that it's not worth codifying in the charter.
I would certainly hope that it would be extremely rare.
Randy.
Randy Bush, IIJ. It won't be rare because you're stuck with me for another year. Let's get truthful here. He doesn't think I act properly as an SC member. I'm intentionally provocative, I say what I think, and I mean it. Enough people ask me to resign, I'll resign right now. Oh, but I agree with his proposal as what I've heard it. Less restrictions, less rules, less garbage. That's good.
Yeah, and that's in keeping with other proposals we've made to change the charter recently as well. So, Randy, were you formally asking for a straw poll or something? Does anybody else have anything to say at all about anything? Dinner. There we go. Okay. Oh, that's right. Candidates who have put their name forward for the SC. Would any of you like time at the microphone just to introduce yourself and to let people know what you think about things, just very briefly, a couple minutes each? Or not, if you choose not to. I realize I should have mentioned this at the beginning, so you had time mentally to prepare. Sorry about that. Anybody who's currently standing for the SC who would like to say something? Or stand up and just speak from where you are, or come to the mic so the remote participants can see. This is being webcast, right? Yeah. No? Okay, well, everybody has name badges. Everybody who's standing for the SC, I think, has been to 5 or more meetings, and therefore their signature is intensely valuable. So anybody who doesn't know them, I recommend you find them in the bar or elsewhere in the corridors and ask them what they think about the issues that are important to you. And with that, the community meeting is now closed. Thank you very much.